This Mother's Day, give mom more than a gift. Give her lasting comfort. I'm Tyler, founder at Cozy Earth. Our bamboo sheets and ultra-soft pajamas are crafted with breathable, temperature-regulating fabric to keep her cozy year-round. It's comfort that feels like home, because home feels like mom. With a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, you know she'll be in good hands.
Go to CozyEarth.com/Spotify and use code Spotify to save up to 40%. That's CozyEarth.com/Spotify.
Hey all, I'm Jamie Lynn Sigler, a mom, actor, and advocate. I know how overwhelming it can be trying to decide which treatment is right for you. I've been there. But you should know you're not alone. You can do this. Start with some research, talk to the community, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask your doctor questions. You might find results that speak for themselves. That's how I landed on Kesimpta. Ask your doctor if Kesimpta, ofatumumab, could be right for you. You can check out the details at kesimpta.com.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
Hello, I'm Erik Brown. Welcome to YAOK. And I'm here with Alyssa. Alyssa, say hello.
Hey.
Today we are talking to Kayla Ancrum, writer of The Wicker King, Icarus, which I said was my favorite book of last year, and the upcoming book, The Corruption of Hollis Brown, which is out today if you are listening to this ever, because, you know, it's coming out 2 weeks from now, which is when the book comes out. So this was such an amazing episode. I love talking with Kayla, and just hearing the way her brain works is amazing. And I want Kayla to become a college lecturer and just
Oh my
so I
God.
can take that course and just sit there and listen and learn everything.
Yeah, agreed. She has the most interesting brain, and her ability to tell stories in a layered and nuanced way is just, I hope that she always, I think she will, regardless of my hopes and dreams, but I hope she always finds a way to continue to tell stories in like multiple mediums, because it's obviously such, like, it's like in her bones in a way that is so unique. And yeah, you all are going to love this conversation.
That is somebody who was born to be a writer and
100%. 100%.
And you know what? It's a long episode, so let's get into it.
5 long years, our lives like magnetic fields. You are my universe. You are my universe, and I'm just a planet.
It's wonderful to have you on the show, because I mean, obviously, I've already told you how much of a fan I am. We did an episode at the end of last year just going over our favorite books of the year, and my number one favorite was Icarus. So it's so nice. Good. I think I gave like a tiny spoiler, which I don't think is too much of a spoiler. It's like I talked about how it was the scene when Icarus finally he's kind of rebelling a little bit. His dad's away, and he goes out to a party with his friends, wakes up the next morning and they're still at the house, and he kind of like freaks out. And when he tells his friends, he doesn't tell them the whole truth, but like they have this moment where they're like, oh dude, we thought you were being like abused. We were ready to get you out of the country, and your dad's just like persnickety. That's totally fine. But like, it was the first time he realized that somebody like cared about him, and it was just so emotional. And I was like, it was like from that point, I think it's like maybe a third of the way through the book, I was totally in. I just loved it. And I loved the way that you kind of put all this emotions. It was like, it felt intimate, but it wasn't romance intimacy. It was all just that friendship intimacy and from the beginning you're told, oh no, he's keeping everybody at arm's length. But they were just like, no, we're not having that. We're friends. Anyway, that's me fangirling out about Icarus. So everybody should be buying it now.
Oh, it's exquisite to be understood.
I feel like that's how I felt when I was reading the book too. I was like, oh, wait, this is so good. So wait, what was your I want to talk about, I know that you have plenty of books that I want to talk about too, because I also love The Wicker King. Your new book is coming out called The Corruption of Hollis Brown. Is that next week?
It is oh wait, no, I got 2 more weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
A shade of fear passed over.
Yeah. You're like, oh, there's still time. But how did you what was the idea for Icarus specifically? Like, what made you want to kind of do this retelling?
I really wanted to get into a story about this really specific kind of relationship between Icarus and his father. He has a very kind of like prototypical, vaguely sports themed situation going on with them, where his dad's like, "You're good at soccer. You're going to play soccer." And he's like, "No, I hate soccer." Like
cat burglary.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, everybody has this kind of like situation with their parents where, like, you, as a parent, you like dream of big things for your kid, and that relationship is usually shown through like a kid either like failing their parents and not able to do it, or like they succeed or whatever. But like the experience of like having these pressures being put on you and being like, I want something different, but what I want isn't like bad, it's just not what my dad wants, is like so relatable, I guess. But I think through the history of my career, I've been focusing a lot on like generational trauma and having like a cross-generational relationships within my books. So having a situation where there is a parent that is acting in a way that is like very, very inappropriate is the word I'm going to use. And like a kid being very, very focused on doing like what is right and what is kind of more reasonable was very interesting to me. And I liked the idea of having an Icarus story where the main character, whose name is Icarus, is the Daedalus of that relationship, where the dad is like, I'm reckless, I'm going to climb a wall and, ruin my friend's life. And his kid is like, you need to calm down, please get down from there. It's just such a fun concept. And I was like, okay. So I want to create a world around that where it makes sense for both the characters and the audience for that kind of like grand lesson to be presented in like the purest version of itself to be understood.
Yeah. Well, succeeded. Great job. I really I think I told it, like, I talked everybody's ear off about the book too, because it was just, it's so good. And one of the things I love about your writing is you write in like this, you have that flash fiction style where pretty much every chapter is like a page and that's it, which it's helpful for me because I'm a very slow reader, but your books I can pretty much go through because it's like one chapter at a time is basically a page. I can sit there. If it's like 11:30 at night, I can be like, oh, well, I can do one more chapter. And then I just keep doing that. And it's like 12:30 now. Have you always kind of written in that flash fiction style, or is that something that you've honed in to like just with, I guess, The Wicker King and like onward from there?
There's actually a little bit of a story behind that. I've actually been writing novels since I was about 12. It's the writing medium that, speaks to me. And as a child, I was like, I need to learn how to do this, and I need to learn how to do it well if I'm going to be able to communicate the stories that I want to share. So I kind of broke down what a novel is into different categories and then worked on each category to like improve my understanding of how to do it. So I did one that was literally just dialogue. I did another book that was literally just like atmospheric description with nothing else. And I was working my way through that, like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then when I was in college, I was writing, I think it was on Tumblr. And I was using Tumblr as like kind of just the thing that I was using because I wanted to be able to write during class because I was a horrible student. And
you could be a horrible student because you were literally self-conducting a creative writing course that was like lifelong.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
I'm a very like, very, if you meet me, you work is very serious. I'm a very like jokey kind of like outgoing person. But like, if you talk to me for long enough, you're like, that person has autism. Like I can tell. So I was alone in my dorm conducting this, guided workshop. And I was working on very specifically creating like dynamic space without the use of like descriptive elements. So I was writing a book where I was just had dialogue and then I had blocking and that was it. So like, instead of being like, oh, we walked into the kitchen and like, you know, sat down and poured himself a cup of coffee and blah, blah, blah. It would just be like dialogue. And then he set his cup down on the table and you know that he's in the kitchen. So I wrote like an entire book of just that. And while writing, two things happened. One, lots of people found it. Lots of people liked it. And I wasn't tagging it with anything. So it was really weird to get like a bunch of attention for it. But two, it was the easiest and fastest that I've ever written a book. And I think at that point I'd written like 5. They weren't good because I was a child, but like, you know, at that point I was like, okay, this is what feels natural. This is what feels right. And I'm an artist that has not only done writing. Like I have had a history of doing like fashion and, you know, ceramics and sculpture and metalworking, glassworking, just all of this stuff. So the entire concept of creating artistically and, you know, making output has been something that I've learned through kind of like a different language than a lot of my writing peers. So my experience with writing in this way is if you do something in a way that feels most natural to you, you have the energy to focus on developing elements of it that would otherwise be obscured by you working against what is your natural inclination. So the reason that I'm able to write as well as I can and put all of this energy into subtext, all the stuff that I'm doing, is because I'm writing in the way that my brain says to write. And I've somehow managed to convince many editors and agents that doing this is fine because the outfit is good enough. So yes, that's why I write in vignettes.
That's perfect. Like I've never thought about like the way you put it like that. I was like, obviously mine's totally different. I'm the one who has. So wait, before I said that, what's your normal like first draft? Like how many words is your first draft usually? Like that you would turn into an editor?
Like 60,000.
So mine's about 100. So it's like I have like the complete opposite where I'm like, no, I have to get all of these. I have to get this exact image in my head on this page because you have to see it the way I am seeing it now. And it's like, even when I'm doing that, I am not doing it successfully. I still have to be reeled in and I have to have my editor or agent be like, hey, you need to figure out where, like, what this place is looking like. Like, where are we in this? What's the scene? And then you have to say, what is this person actually feeling? Give me their emotions through this too. And I'm just like, no, I have to tell you it's basically like putting it into a movie, like a movie into a book. But that's why I'm kind of jealous of your writing style, because you have like a sentence that basically will give you all of the information that I would put in probably like 2 paragraphs. Like somehow it's not like it's a long sentence. It's not like a 2-paragraph long sentence. It is a sentence that maybe has 25 words in it. And it tells you what the character is feeling, where they are, and what they're doing, and also what they're going to say to somebody. And it's like all of that is encompassed in this one sentence. And it's like, need more Kayla Ancrum, I think. Or I just need to take your like writing intensive class. That's what it is. You should do the master class thing, and it'll just be about flash fiction and pretty much getting it to be like, here's this sentence and here's how you write it, so that you are telling your whole thing.
God, I wish.
You can't teach everyone, because this is how you write. So you got to keep like, these are the secrets. This is the reason why your books are going to be the way that they are, and people are going to keep buying them. So you can't have her secrets, Erik.
I know. And it's also just the way your brain works. It's the way my brain works. It's just like,
No, I love it. And that's a really great point that you made about the like one sentence that has all of the stuff. I kind of, as a writer, I cut my teeth on like myth, fairy tale, and poetry. I read a lot of that when I was kind of growing up, and I was very enamored by like parables and like fables and stuff, because they were so simplistically written, but you can tell that there's so much going on with them, like behind the scenes in regards to their like cultural impact, the like Watsonian element of what's happening in the story, but also the Doylist element of like when it was written and, you know, what it means to the specific culture and all that stuff. And I was just really, really interested in the concept of something being like minute, but incredibly heavy. like a marble made of lead. Like I'm really, really interested in that, conceptually speaking. And I think that in comparison to my peers, but also I wrote one book in traditional format. It's called Darling. It didn't do so well. But in comparison to my peers, my work is kind of astringent, I'd say. Like there isn't a lot there, you know, generally speaking. I don't know whether it's something that like people are liking or not liking, but it definitely is like an element of my writing that helps with being able to read it fast. But also, like, if you're not kind of paying attention to what's going on with it, like if you miss that one sentence, like it kind of fucks up everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think I even mentioned that when I blurbed Icarus, I mentioned that like there are sentences where it is just like you said, where he put his cup on the table and that's all that sentence is. And that's a sentence that you can get through and be like, okay, good, done. But then there's other sentences where you'll get to, and it's almost like poetry where you read the sentence and it kind of stops you in your tracks and you have to sit with it for a second. You're like, wait, and it makes you go back and read it again, which that I don't do. Like when I read fiction in general, I will never kind of go back and read something unless I'm like, wait, did I miss something? And I get confused and I will go back like a paragraph to see if I missed something. But I will never, like, even if a sentence like hits me really well, I never usually continue. I'll never go back and be like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. I'll always be like, oh, that's cool. And then continue. Like with yours, I always kind of stop and be like, hold on, and I'll reread it again.
But it makes sense that you feel so inspired by things like prose, where like I love the picture of a lead marble, because that's kind of like when you're reading poetry or anything like that, where it is sort of that same thing where like you're going to communicate an entire idea that someone could expand into a novel in something that's this big. And so every single thing has to have a lot of impact. And so then for your writing, where each chapter is relatively short and each sentence is a lead marble, it's like concise. And it's just, in being concise, kind of everything is so intentional. It has to be, wow, you have a really cool brain to do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Like, that's so great. And I was reading a little bit on your website too about how much community and diversity and inclusion are big themes, obviously personally, but also in the things that you're creating too. And the intentionality in that is really beautiful. And there's one little part too where you're talking about how you don't have a trans character yet, but part of that, even that is intentional, because there's like this hyper visibility with trans characters, trans people right now. And so like wanting to be really intentional with what you create with that in mind. There's such a balance of like responsibility that you take on there, where you're like, this story deserves to be told, and also in a way where, you know, I feel like it's being represented the way that it should be. And how do you like find the balance in that?
Well, my mom is a teacher, and she's been a teacher for the past like 20-ish years. She's a speech language pathologist, so she spends a lot of time with children who have like speech difficulties, but also kind of integrates a lot with the school kind of sociologist. So from the very beginning, from when I was very, very young, I've had this kind of understanding of children and teenagers as a very specific kind of investment. And it is in the investment of the promise of a future where we are living in a way that we would like to live. So if we don't do what we're supposed to be doing with children, we will not get to have a good life for anybody else. So it is like very, very important. And understanding that, and understanding the way that communities work in regards to not just like, oh, this community has like children that are really bad and they're like doing whatever. And it's like, okay, there's a history to what created the circumstances that are going on. Is there a community center? Are all the adults having to work so many hours that they have no time for their children? Then you get children running around the street. It's like everything is connected. And we've created a society where people can't really conceptualize that in like a casual way. So a lot of the time when I like do these kind of interviews, I'm talking about like, you know, who I write for, why I write for them, what I'm doing and stuff like that. People are like, oh, wow, it never occurred to me to think about that in that way, because of the way that our society is very kind of like individualized. But having an understanding that like the position that I've been given as an artist that is making mainstream distributed content, regardless of the fact that I am a Black, LGBTQ, disabled, like there's just so much stuff going on with me. The fact that I was given this is an immense privilege, and I do not want to waste it. So the very little that I am given, I need to use with intention, and I need to act like I know that it is a gift. Second, the concept of books as a medium is kind of very long lasting. Like, regardless of whether a book that I wrote is currently in print or out of print, it's still kind of floating around there. So there has to be this kind of like tiered understanding of time when it comes to my own work. There's the work that I'm creating for the children of now. There's work that I'm creating of the children of the future. And there is work that I've created with understanding that there are adults that did not have access to the work that is available now. And I am creating that with them in mind. It's kind of like a tenderness, but then also the understanding of my position within the kind of like privileged structure of our country and like the current zeitgeist. Like, yes, I have lots of room to write about lots of different characters and stuff like that, but the hypervisibility of certain marginalized groups requires that be produced by people from within that group during this specific flavor of oppression that we are having to deal with. So having like an understanding of that is a part and parcel my dedication to the responsibility of the position that I've been given. And, I may only have this availability for my work for a short period of time. I want to, in my retirement, be able to say, in the year of 2017 to, 2030, I was given this opportunity. I built something that was beautiful and intentional, and it is visible that there is a lot of respect that was put into this, and that readers can understand that I both respect the children that consumed it, but also the circumstances under which it was produced.
Yeah, that's beautiful and so well said. My goodness.
Thank you.
In your head, you're like, you expect everybody to kind of, who are creating something, you expect them to have that idea there, even if they can't explain it as eloquently as you. But there's so many people that genuinely do not. And I think that is why part of there's the idea of publishing who are choosing to publish diverse stories. They're not that idea of we're just doing it because it's a money maker. It's like there's people who will say that, and it's like, no, you don't understand. They're literally trying to take stories that are written by the people who have been oppressed and who have been ignored, and those stories have been told by their own oppressors, and now we are finally giving a voice to people who actually have a voice to, I don't know the word I'm trying to say, but they're trying to basically say, look, this is the person that is writing this story and has this experience, and they're doing it consciously and trying to give different people a way into a different kind of mindset, a different community, and it's not just a cash grab. And that has been one of the things that has been making me very mad about all of the stupid DEI shit that everybody keeps talking about. I did not say everybody, I should say right-wing people keep talking about, conservative people, because it's for them, you see that they have never once thought that there were different opinions in the world and different experiences in the world, and it just pissed me off. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
But I wish that more people would be kind of conscious of the stories that they are kind of creating and telling, and especially with movies. This is not a movie podcast, but I don't need to get into the weeds about it, but the movie Anora, I hated it. I think that I was I don't understand why it won Best Picture. I think it's misogynistic as hell. Everybody was talking about how it was so interesting and exciting, and then I'm watching it and I was just this. I was waiting for something different to happen, because I was okay, well, it's a, as far as I know, straight white guy who has been making movies about sex workers for years, and I thought because he had been doing it, maybe he had something new to say where he was okay, well, this is where it's going here. And it was the same movie about like kind of shaming sex workers and showing that it's like a difficult thing, and anybody who chooses that line of work is choosing it for the wrong reasons, and that's how it ends. And I was just like, so we didn't need it again from a straight white guy telling us about all of this stuff. Like, can you tell I'm still annoyed?
Yeah, no. Yeah,
but that's one of the things where I'm like, I would rather see a movie that was written and directed by a woman who had done sex work and knew all of this stuff, and it wasn't just this morality play about women in America trying to like get rich by marrying a rich dude and doing sex work, which I just disgusted me.
I mean, honestly, I'd say that's in the same line as the thing that I was saying about like writing trans perspectives while not being trans, but also being a member of the LGBTQ community. Like, it's just timing. Like, maybe if I wrote it like 1999.
Yeah.
Where it's like the stuff was going on with the publishing industry where it was like, if one of us managed to like get into a position of power, it's like, okay, we gotta write all this stuff. It's like,
we gotta get all the points of view out now.
Exactly. Whereas like now it's like, hey buddy, there's so many other people who have so much more information about this than you. Like, it's just easier.
There was actually, I got asked that question at a book event once, and I forget exactly what they said, but they asked me, they were like, oh, well, why are all of your main characters white? And I was like, because I'm a white guy. I choose to write my main character, my point of view character, as a white character because I'm a white man, and I did not want to take this specific Black experience and decided like, oh, I'm gonna write this book about a Black kid growing up in this school and working at a retirement community and falling in love with another person, and be like, no, that's not the story. I have other characters because I do actually want to show like diversity. But the way the person asked me this question was it was like he was trying to shame me for not embracing diversity, when I was like, no, I don't think you understand that me, a white guy, writing a queer Black story is not diversity. That is kind of the opposite. It's kind of diluting and making it worse. Because
honestly, I mean, and if anybody else is an author who has gotten questions like that, who's listening, this is how I handle this. If somebody asks me a question like that, usually what I do is I say something like, oh, are you looking for something that is work that feels like something that I would write, but written from this perspective? And then I just list a bunch of recommendations. 2 in 1. Yeah. It's like, clearly you want vibes.
Yeah.
You know, like, go read my friend Caleb Roerig. He's writes about drag queens. Like, and like, one, it creates an environment where people who are like, oh, you know, I also would like to, the recommendations are there, but also it kind of like brings attention away from whatever it is that they were assuming that you need to fill the gap in, and saying there are other people who are doing that specific work, and here they are. One of the things that I think I'm actually slowly learning is kind of a little bit different about my perspective within this industry, is that I kind of perceive all of the other authors as like colleagues. So when I think about the work that's being produced at the current time, I think about what I can add to the like general conversation about what's going on, as opposed to thinking about them as competitors, I guess. Yeah. So it's like, you know, I'm writing about this specific flavor of queer fiction or whatever, but I can do that because all of my colleagues are doing their job, doing something else. And as long as we're all doing this, we can all be doing stuff. Like, I think I was talking to somebody about like issue books, where it's like, oh, this is a book that is very, very specifically about what it is like to be this specific flavor of LGBTQ, and like how it impacts your life, and like, you know, the difficulties and sadnesses and triumphs and all of that stuff and whatever. Whereas my books are like, there's sadness and triumph and other stuff going on, but them being gay or bi is not an issue. There's worse stuff happening.
Yeah.
The only reason that I can write that kind of stuff is because everybody else is doing that other thing. And it's like, we need to have, you know, but if all of those people either were no longer allowed to write or were unable to create, and I was all who was left, God forbid, I would immediately start writing issue books, because somebody does. So it's like having that understanding of like, we are a marginalized group. We are creating content for a marginalized group that, you know, is consumed by everybody, but for the, you know, survival of this marginalized group, making sure that we have kind of a general understanding of the fact that we are like a community is very important to me and like the mission of my work.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love the thought of having other authors be like peers to you, because I'm not a writer. I'm a sex and relationship coach, and I like do that online, but I do it in person and whatever with or not in person. I guess sometimes in person, but I do it with clients as well. So I had a friend who was asking me, she wanted to get into like the same kind of work that I do, and she was asking me for advice or support and whatever. And she said that she's had other experiences with other people in similar work who didn't want to share give any advice or anything like that. And I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, there's going to be someone who will hear the same exact information from me and it won't resonate, but they'll hear it from you and it will. And so, but like everybody's voice is always going to be important to someone. And so, you know, it's especially important when we want to be authentic and sharing stories that feel like a part of our actual lives. But there's so much to share. There's so much to create and so many stories that people can and should want to express. And so I love that you have the intention of like community and we're all doing this together. And it's sort of like, what's that expression that's like tide goes up, like all of the boats go up?
Mm-hmm.
All boats rise.
You guys are good with the words. Yeah. You guys are good with the words, not me. But yeah, that's sort of the feeling that I have, and I love that. I love that spirit. I feel like is part of like what you're writing, and also part of like how you are as an author too. That's very cool.
That was like something I didn't realize was not a thing until I like actually started my whole debut year. It's just when you suddenly start to meet other actual like other writers who are being published, it becomes like people kind of start to internalize it, and I think that they get in their own heads a lot. Or I mean, I'll have it where I'll get jealous I actually haven't been doing that as much anymore. So maybe I'm growing as a human. But like when I was debuting, I would get jealous of like other people I was debuting with, and like if they were getting more marketing support, stuff like that. But eventually I realized that nobody is actually competition, because especially there'd be like big fantasy books that are getting all of this marketing support and everything. And it's like, well, that's not what I write. So maybe we have some kind of crossover, but that's probably like this little bit of people that is actually going to be reading my books. And if you're reading that wide across genres, you can read everybody's books. For
sure.
And you can buy everybody's books. Like plenty of people, I have plenty of books that I bought and haven't even read yet. None of my
the
table,
TBR
actually.
always grows. But
Yeah.
Kayla, Erik was talking about fantasy, and you read a lot of fantasy, right?
Yeah, but like what I write is like so different.
Yeah, but you know what? But I think fantasy, okay, actually I'll ask you because you're the author. Do you feel like reading fantasy, even though it's not what you're writing, is helpful in some way?
I think that it is helpful in so much as it gives you a very crisp understanding of a book as an object that is anatomical. As weird as that sounds, like for fantasy, it's like I just want to read about elves. Like trying to read fantasy, but like fantasy, especially high fantasy, are so formulaic. You know, you can like sit down and open like The Witcher and be like, okay, these are the things that like existed because of some other book from the past that created this thing and whatever. So there's like historical elements to the anatomy of a fantasy book, and there are like cultural elements of a fantasy book, and you can really kind of like see a book from like a bird's eye view. But like, let's say you're reading, I don't know, the book White Oleander or something. Like the only thing that you're getting is just the story just pounding you in the face like a fucking waterfall or whatever. But like fantasy books really do give you this understanding of books as like an anatomical product is what I'm going to say. This is a terrible thing for artists to say about their own work, but like as a product, understanding your craft is kind of important. I would say, generally speaking, I get a little bit more from the other thing that I read a lot of, which is fan fiction.
Yeah.
Tons
love
it so much. Like in an academic kind of wrote my, undergrad thesis on fan fiction, was working on a project for the Library of Congress about fandom history. Like, I love fan fiction.
Oh my gosh.
I used to run
What's
a
your
website.
favorite?
I'm not going to tell you the title of that. Where it was just literally just like rare pairs and fan fiction that was not aggregated on like fanfiction.net or AO3. Like I scrolled through like all the GeoCities old stuff and like just compiled like this dense encyclopedic, fan fiction archive. And then I think I turned like 23 and got embarrassed. There's still people who are like, oh, do you remember that thing? I can't believe it's gone. I'm like, oh, that's not my fault at all. But anyway.
There's going to be somebody listening that is like, it's like light bulbing for them right now. They're like,
it was
this one, I know it.
Oh God. Anyway, but like fan fiction is so fascinating to me because there is a really interesting relationship that it has with desire, where it's like, this is a product that is made for free, for fun, out of love, about things that satisfy in isolation the person who is creating and also the community of fellow creators. So when you read like a fan fiction about something that's like really cringe or whatever, that person wrote that because they're really into it, and all their little friends who are in the comment section are just like, hell yeah, that sort of thing, that like raw desire. That is something that, as somebody who writes traditional fiction, I don't write fan fiction, I just read it. When I'm deciding how to portray certain elements of horror or romantic, desire or, pain or whatever, the like purest distilled version of somebody experiencing that or expressing that when they're doing it for themselves is what I get from fan fiction. So
wow.
Very, very interesting. And then also the relationship that the reader has with satisfaction is an element, because fan fiction is kind of like the snack food of media. Like you can't eat chips forever. Like you gotta eat like a full meal at some point. But the understanding of a chip as something that is uniquely like snackable and uniquely consumable in that way, because it has like a really good balance of like sweet and salty and spice and fat, and all of that gives you the recipe for something that feels compulsively consumable. So I can turn around and make some chili that has those elements, and the chili is feeling like a meal, but it also is, like soul fulfilling, like a snack. And like that is what I learned from fan fiction.
That is so cool.
That. Yeah. I never even thought about it like that, but
yeah, you created such like a beautiful meaning from fan fiction. I loved that. If someone were to want to find fan fiction, that's hard to say. Where should they go? And by someone, I mean me. Because now I feel inspired. Now I feel inspired to read it. I'm like, I've never really spent a lot of time reading fan fiction.
You should.
Okay, well, I'm going to offer some places and a little bit of history, and then I'm going to offer a recipe to the question you just answered.
Okay.
So, fan fiction, like the places where you read it, has kind of developed dramatically over the past, I'd say maybe like 60 or 70 years. Like originally we were kind of just like girl groups, mostly girls and the gays. That's kind of like our region. We're the people who are mostly creating that. We'd have little clubs, and like you'd type up your fan fiction, and then you'd bring it to your club, and everybody would read it and be like, oh my God, Kirk and Spock, that's so hot, or whatever, right? And then we like transitioned to email lists, which is where you'd subscribe to an email list, and then somebody would send you a like really long email with links in it to like, stories, or like sub email folders where it's like, we're going to stick with Star Trek just to make it easy. I really love, Kirk and McCoy. So I am like in the Kirk McCoy email list, but like, I also really love, when they're like stranded on a planet. So I'm like in the subfolder of like stranded on a planet stories. People were just sending that. It was crazy. Yahoo was very exciting back then. Then, we moved to individual websites, all of which are now on the black web because of all of the links that have been deleted to access it. So there are tons and tons of just like historical archives of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories that are just lost out in the middle of nowhere, which is relevant for what's going on with Archive of Our Own. But fanfiction.net was created, I think, in 2000. It was the first like kind of real aggregate attempt to create a non-fandom specific fan fiction website. So before it was like, I want to read about Doctor Who, so you got to go to the Doctor Who site. Whereas fanfiction.net was just everybody, like a huge encyclopedia of people working together. Archive of Our Own was developed because fanfiction.net, I think they wanted to do more advertising stuff and get money from that. So they were like, oh, you can't have like erotica on here, and like you can't do certain things. And like a bunch of writers who had been in the fandom community for like 30 years were like, hey man, we're gonna do our own thing. So they created what is quite possibly the best information archive that exists, to the point where like other like government websites, JSTOR, like they are turning to people who have worked on AO3 and being like, hey, how did you do this? How did you set this up? Like it's a very well designed website. And then I think the other places are like Wattpad and like Tumblr, but they don't have like as well aggregated a system as Archive of Our Own. So it's a little bit older, less like hot new place to read fan fiction, more like best place to find fan fiction.
Okay. Love it.
So Archive of Our Own is designed as an archive. It is not algorithmic. Like when you open it up, it's not going to show you the best stories. You have to handle it like you were going to JSTOR. So it is like you have the library articles on one side and you've got the filtration system on the other side. So what you would do, and here's the recipe, what you would do is you would go to Archive of Our Own and type in or open like whatever, it's a movie or a TV show or whatever, you can open it by movie, open it by TV show, find whatever it is you want to read about, Supernatural, fucking Succession, anything. Right? So you open it up and it just has everything arranged, I think by date that it was uploaded or something. You go to the filter section and you can arrange it by bookmarks or kudos. They've got bookmarks, kudos, date uploaded, and like length, and just a bunch of different things that you can organize it by. Kudos is how many people were like, yes, thumbs up, we like this. Bookmarks is how many people are like, I'm going to save this in my secret library to read.
Yeah.
I used to, for the past 10 years, arrange by kudos because I was like, if everybody likes it, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now I arrange by bookmarks because that means some people who are like, oh, I don't want everyone to know that I like this, they'll still put it in their bookmarks. So arrange it by how many people have liked this thing. Then you can choose, oh, I want to read about this couple, or I want to read about this topic based on tags. So you can choose, I want to read about Kirk and Spock, but I want it to be exclusively the J.J. Abrams movies. I don't know, you don't have taste or something. You're like, all I want to read is that. And then you can go down and be like, I don't ever want to see a single fan fiction in which somebody is raped, or a single fan fiction in which somebody is pregnant, or this one character who I really hate is in this fan fiction. Cancel them. No fan fictions about this. So you can kind of aggregate whatever it is that you want to read through the filtration system. You can choose how long you want it to be. Oh, I only want fan fictions with 20,000 words or more, or 20,000 words or less. Oh, I only want fan fictions that are crossovers with, Star Trek, but crossed over with, I don't know, Teen Wolf or whatever. And you're like, I only want to read cool crossovers. You can really tailor it to spit out what you want, arranged by what everyone on the site thinks are the best of those. Wow. It's like the McDonald's of reading books.
Not to be lame, but I just got chills because I'm really excited. It's
so cool. It's so fun.
I have been on Archive of Our Own, and I've read. I mean, I will say some definitely go through those tags and click off the things that you do not want to see, because
you'll see everything.
I have accidentally gotten about like 3,000 words into a fan fiction that like turns like very violent, and like not in like a fun horror kind of way, like sex violent stuff, and I was just like, oh no, I'm not into that. No. But it's like, it's surprising because this was before I knew about any of the tags, so I just was looking up random fan fiction and be like, oh, I'll just go look at stuff. Definitely try and figure out what the there's one called, I think one of the tags is like Dead Dove Inside, which is like, it's from Arrested Development, where Jason Bateman's character finds a paper bag that says, do not eat, dead dove inside, do not eat, in a freezer. And he opens it up and looks in and he goes, I don't know what I expected. So that's basically like, if you're going into like something that has like all of these tags, it'll have like dead dove inside. And it's like, listen, you've been warned. You know what to expect, kind of thing. And that was one of them that was on there. I was like, oh, okay.
But they also tag like other stuff that's not like inflammatory. It's not like, oh, you have tags and it's like, oh, here are all these warnings. It's not like a content warning thing. It's kind of more like this is the information that is inside of this document. Like you're looking at a JSTOR PDF or something like that.
Yeah.
So they'll go Pride and Prejudice, and then they'll tag it like modern AU. So you're like, oh, I really want to read a historical thing, but you clicked on it even though it said modern AU, and now you're reading about them in college or something, and that sucks. So,
Right.
But it's really fun because you can get depending on how large the fandom is or how much work there is available, you can really, really get specific about whatever it is that you want to read. So if I wanted to read, I don't know, just something that's so what my soul is seeking from this medium, I can get it, which is really interesting, but also snack food, you can't McDonald's every day.
Snack food, but also
the fanfic that people have written about All That's Left in the World, which was when I found out that existed.
Wow.
I was so fucking excited.
But so I like the Vampire Diaries, the show. Some of these fanfics are 500,000 words.
Yeah.
Yes. And people will arrange it like a book series too.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That, and also, like, to your original point, the passion that you have to write this story for the sake of just sharing with a community that's just really gonna love it is like the most pure, beautiful thing. And that is so cool. I am so on board with fanfic now in a way where I was not on board, but I just like didn't know. Wow.
Yeah. Fanfiction's amazing.
That's so cool. Oh boy, this is going to be a problem, I fear.
You're the perfect blend of elegance and style, and your ride should be no different. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid meets all your needs, from business to brunch and everywhere in between. With head-turning details like a sleek front end, plus stylish interior, and an available 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and seamless tech integration. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the new 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
Hey all, I'm Jamie Lynn Sigler, a mom, actor, and advocate. I know how overwhelming it can be trying to decide which treatment is right for you. I've been there. But you should know you're not alone. You can do this. Start with some research, talk to the community, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask your doctor questions. You might find results that speak for themselves. That's how I landed on Kesimpta. Ask your doctor if Kesimpta, ofatumumab, could be right for you. You can check out the details at kesimpta.com.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Introducing Internet Supreme Court, the new live stream show where we judge everything in the current cultural zeitgeist.
We cover news, memes, Reddit drama, X-nonsense, and try to stare long enough into Mark Zuckerberg's eyes to see if he has a soul.
He doesn't. Check us out every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on InternetSupremeCourt.com, premiering in March 2025.
Check out InternetSupremeCourt.com for more or follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Let's move out of fan fiction a little bit. Can you tell us about The Corruption of Hollis Brown? That's your newest book that comes out.
Yes, I'm so excited. Okay. The Corruption of Hollis Brown is a book about a small Midwest town that is being haunted by a spirit that makes it so that their main avenue of revenue is cut off from the community. So it's like there's two towns right next to each other. There's the town that the story occurs in, and then there's this other town called Rosetown. Rosetown is like crazy haunted, right? Every single time that they try to build a factory there, every single time they try to do anything that allows the people who live in this other town to like work over there, it just like machines explode. Like it's just a disaster. So everybody's like, okay, we don't go over there. That's done. Now we all have to go and like drive really far away and like, just go to all of these other places to like find work. And everybody in the town is very, very poor because of this. The main character, Hollis Brown, is he's an interesting main character to have because he is like popular and a bully. And he has this kind of like self-destructive, very Steve Rogers MCU thing where he like goads people into fighting him as like a form of self-harm. Like he's unhinged, right? And it's kind of like about him coming to terms with the fact that in order to continue to live in his community, he has to become a better person so that he can share in their kind of like community of resource sharing, because nobody has any money. So like if you need, I don't know, a lawnmower, you go to your neighbor and you borrow a lawnmower. You need some milk, you got somebody has a garden that has things that they're given. So everybody's kind of working together. But if you're a huge asshole, you get nothing. So he's like, oh no, I've wasted my time here. Everyone hate me. I got to figure out how to be a better person. And he's like, doing all this kind of like self-care work and like figuring himself out and whatever when the reader meets him. And he somehow manages to run into and then get possessed by a ghost. And it's just him locked in his body with this ghost that's like just kind of puppeteering his body around. And the entire story is about them and their relationship and them getting to know each other and eventually kind of like falling in love with each other. But it is an interesting story because it is not about this ghost corrupting this kid, because the title of the book is The Corruption of Hollis Brown. It is about Hollis Brown orchestrating the corruption of the ghost. Because for him, he's like, I've spent all of my time doing the same thing and being the same thing and being this person that is existing in this place. And I just met somebody who I feel like is my other half, and I don't ever want him to leave. So he's trapping this guy in his body. And they create this really interesting relationship and like this sprawling love story about them and whatever. But more importantly, it's about the small town and like figuring out community and like working together and building an understanding in the reader of like rural America and the kind of like strength and grit that it requires to live out there.
Yeah. Wow. It's such like a multifaceted story too. So cool.
And you got 4-starred reviews.
I did. I'm very excited.
Incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's really weird because like I've always kind of gotten, not to, knock on wood, I've always gotten pretty good reviews from like the trade, but I have never been a bestseller in any respect. Like never made any of the lists, not even the indie one. So it's like the critics love her. Does anyone else?
Well, I love you. I love your writing. I mean, The Wicker King was your first book, right?
Yes. That
one, like, I don't know. I think everybody who like has pretty much read The Wicker King, I guarantee you they just read like the first little part of the back paragraph of like what it's about and went, I have to read this book immediately. Because that's how it was for me. I was like, oh, I need to read this like right now. Just because it sounded so interesting. And it was you can tell me when I am wrong about this because it has been years since I've read it, but it's a list of This Is For You. It's about this kid, 2 kids who are in a hospital. One of them is kind of missing some memories and the other has, I think, all of them, but they have just gotten arrested for setting a factory on fire in their hometown. And now they're kind of dealing with all of that. And they also believe that they were at one point in an alternate universe where somebody was a king of this universe. Am I right? And so like it's about trying, like the one is like trying to be like, no, we have to go back, and the other one's like, am I crazy? Are you crazy? What's happening? And doesn't know what to feel.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
It's like I wrote The Wicker King when I was 19, so I was a child. Amazing. But it's about one kid who has like actual mental illness. Like he is the main character he's dealing with that. And then there's another kid who has like a physical hallucination disorder. It is one of only 2 hallucination disorders that's just physical. And it's like something is pressing on the part of your brain that I think does imagination and then the part of your brain that's doing visual. And if it like does it at the same time, like hard codes it in, you get to like see a bunch of stuff, but like you're completely fine, mental health wise. Yeah. So he is like slowly, as the situation is happening to him, losing his ability to see. So he's like going blind because of the hallucinations. And between the 2 kids, they're like, maybe if we fulfill the story that the one kid is seeing, will be able to stop this from happening to him, which is a very unhinged and childish way of dealing with that problem. But while that's happening to that one kid, the other kid is like rapidly developing, borderline personality disorder. None of his teachers are caring. Like, he is doing.
Oh my goodness!
He used to be doing good grades. He's no longer doing it. He used to be very fastidious in his, dress and appearance. He's kind of going by the wayside. He's starting to set many small fires, and all of his, the teachers and the police and just everybody's like, man, you need to stop doing that stuff. There's nothing wrong with you. Quit it. And I was writing, because I wrote it as a kid, I was writing from the perspective of somebody who had recently graduated high school and is like, me and all of my peers were viciously failed by all of the adults in my life.
Yeah.
I want to write a story that, when read by adults, is showcasing to them that, there's this thing and you need to be able to pay attention to it, but also from the perspective of kids being like, these are problems that can happen to your friends. This is a, realistic portrayal of what teenagers try to do when they're trying to help each other, and that there is honor and dignity in the desire to do that. Not, just it working, but just the desire to try to help is in itself divine.
That's so beautiful. Wow. And with a story like that, I ask everyone who comes on the podcast if they are a pantser or a plotter. And I know that it's on your website, so I saw it already. And Eric, do you want to guess? Do you know?
I think you're a hardcore plotter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think you probably, I feel like some of your plots are probably even longer than your books at sometimes. You have backstory, which you are writing out in your head, and you're like, okay, there. And now I can start writing this 60,000 word book and be done.
Yeah, I do a lot of outlines, actually. I usually do 3 before I write my books. I do 1 that's the plot, because, I got to sell it. And then 2, I do a breakdown of the journey that I want my audience to go through. So it's not like, oh, I want this character to feel this way. It's like, when a child is reading this book, I want them to feel like this when they open the first page. This is how I want the child to feel. Mm-hmm. This is how I want a librarian that is reading this in preparation to give to a child to feel about this. This is what I want somebody who is LGBTQ that didn't have access to this to be able to see for themselves in this book, if that's what they're reading this book for. And then after I'm done with that outline, I do a final outline, which is a literary criticism of my own work, as though I did not write it. Because I know
you have the most amazing brain I've ever heard of, Kayla.
I've had somebody analyze my work, traumatizing, by the way, but they were like, oh, this author writes about isolation. I wonder if, and then wrote about what it was like for me to be a kid with a horrifying accuracy. And I was like, I can't allow this to happen again. I need to have a handle on what people are able to analyze. So I do it myself.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
That's insane. Oh my goodness. Well, and it makes sense that you're such a thorough plotter, I think, because as you're explaining all of the plot lines of your stories and all of the nuance with all the characters and the intention between the character, who the characters are, and also the actions that they're taking, I'm like, okay, there had to be so much planning to create this web. And so I'm not surprised that you're a plotter in general, but oh my God, the amount of plotting it's a lot. But amazing. And it's your brain being very cool and doing the thing that it needs to do to create these very, very cool layered stories.
So once your outlines are done, how long does it take you usually to write the actual book?
3 months, maybe 2.5 if I procrastinate too much, which is a major problem for me.
What do you do to procrastinate?
Oh my God. I love movies. I'm a huge film buff. I'm also currently watching One Piece, which is a full-time job. There's 1,200 something episodes. Yeah. I don't know. So the reason I'm watching One Piece is because I want to experience what it feels like to have heard the Odyssey told to you. A spoken word, whatever, but a story that is very, very long in that way, in which the journey of the story is the journey of living. So the person who created that was in their 20s, and now they're in their 40s. So you're watching somebody's journey through aging in a Doyleist way, through the Watsonian exploration of their understanding of storytelling and internalized myth. highbrow analysis of One Piece. But yeah, like I'm really big into visual media, and all of my books kind of are designed to feel like you're watching a movie, and it's,
I was going to say that's another thing about Wicker King was it your idea to, so like as you're reading, the pages slowly start to get darker and darker, like the actual paper that it's printed on gets like stained with black, and then I think like it's either right before or right after the like arson happens, the pages are all black and the words are white instead, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
was that like your idea, or was that part of did the publisher come to you and say, hey, we're going to do this too?
Actually, I can't take credit for it. The publisher actually came to me about it. So,
that's so exciting.
It's relevant though, because it's like
they like really got it.
They did, yes. But it was Erin Stein. She was running an imprint at Macmillan called Imprint. It was like her first, when she signed The Wicker King, it was like her first year of running the imprint. I don't know how much money they had, but it was probably very little to be allotted to each book. I think my first advance was like 15 grand or something like that. So there was very much like a push to be like, okay, what can we do to sell this concept with very, very little? So they created the design of the book to be able to kind of hand sell it by just holding it up. And actually, I think I have a copy of it.
I was going to go get mine, but I have my little thing.
This is my closet office. So flipping towards the beginning, it's lighter, and then like it's like really dark and stuff.
Oh, it's so
yeah,
cool.
and I forgot there's also like pictures, like I keep thinking Instagram pictures. It's not Instagram. It's the automatic, the instant pictures.
Oh,
like
Polaroid.
Polaroid. Yeah, there's Polaroid pictures in there too.
Yeah, it's mixed media. I actually fully illustrated it, and then we wound up not using any of the illustrations. Like, lots of stuff going on with that book. But yeah, like when you are lucky enough to have a team that like understands your work in that way, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Do you ever want to like take something like The Wicker King and make it a different kind of media, like do a play or a movie or a TV show or something? Like, do you have like, if you had an unlimited budget and the desire to do it, would you just kind of like do something?
Yes. And like, this is like contractual obligation cannot say varieties of things, but like what I'm implying is what was going on for a while. But it's one of those things where it's like there's only so much that I can control, and like the market of media material, both in TV and movies, in the visual sphere that is designed for children and teenagers is decreasing at an exponential level. So for a decent amount of young adult authors that may or may not have gotten, stuff optioned or whatever, like options have gone away because nobody is making it. Like they were working on something for Hulu. They decided to close out their teen department. Netflix is really like kind of the only bastion, but they're focusing on fantasy. Like nobody who's making anything other than fantasy is getting like, Netflix adaptions. Films are starting to get really, really like, when was the last time you saw a movie that is geared towards a teen audience? Usually it's like the older crossover, like the Charlie's Angels with Kristen Stewart or whatever. Yeah, like it's stuff like that. So it's literally just like one of those things where it's like, maybe I could get an indie producer to do it, and like a, because it's not encroaching on any contractual stuff for, whatever. But I do think that The Wicker King probably, and actually all of my work, is very well suited for a Euphoria type Skins adaptation. Yeah. I write speculative fiction, so there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of really creative cinematic stuff to go on. There was somebody reached out to me when I was writing it. It hadn't even been picked up by the publisher yet, but they reached out to me and they were like, this is really cool. I have an idea for a movie of it, and I wanted to run it by you. And what their concept was, and it's been 12 years since this happened, and obviously, but their concept was that they were going to have the camera be like POV from both boys. From August's POV, everything was normal. And then from Jack's POV, it would slowly become like a fantasy. Like, so like all of the stuff would begin to like change, and you would just like see them talking to each other, and like with completely normal, like, oh, you're looking at this person or you're looking at that person based on who's talking, you would see a completely different set. And I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard,
Yeah. Wow.
Maybe that might happen though, because I mean, the Nickel Boys just did that with. Did you see that? The movie Nickel Boys? Either of you?
No. I'm
The
gonna
whole movie.
film it up.
The whole movie is it's a beautiful movie. Like absolutely beautiful. Everything is told from the two characters' points of view. Like it is there, and I didn't realize it was going to be two characters because it's just from one. His name is Elwood, and he's a black kid in the 60s who he's about to go to this college that's going to be free for all black kids, and he's walking there. As he's being walking to this school for his interview, he gets picked up by another black guy who wants to give him a ride, and doesn't realize that the guy who is giving him the ride stole the car and gets pulled over, and so he gets sent to this reform school as a 17-year-old black kid in the South.
Oh, no.
And it's like him in this reform school, and the whole movie is from his point of view. So like you'll see like there'll be like little clips of like a close-up, which is like it's obviously not his what he was seeing, but it's like a memory of like how he remembers this very specific artistic looking thing. And then there's other moments when the other character is seeing him, and the whole scene that where they meet gets replayed again, and it's from the other guy's point of view.
I like that.
And I think if you like film, you'll love it, just because just sitting there watching it, and nothing is, you would think being able to see through someone's POV, it sounds like it would be like this really explicit kind of like, you know exactly what is going on the entire time, but there's still enough of like mystery in the movie where you're just kind of like putting pieces together in your head to try and figure out how the story is being told to you. Because then I don't want to spoil it, never mind. But like there's other moments where you'll be like, oh, this is what's happening. Okay, cool. Because there'll be like a cut, and all of a sudden things change. You're like, wait, what's happening? What's going on here? It doesn't force feed you anything. It kind of requires you to sit there and pay attention the whole time. And it's only like an hour and 40 minutes too, which thank God it's not like 2 hours. Actually, no, I'm lying. I think it is 2 hours, but still. And the sound design in this movie is gorgeous. Like the way, because it is trying to give you as many senses as possible. I wish it was like smell-o-vision. It probably would have been great, because there's like these beautiful shots of like him like laying in the grass outside, and like just watching it, and like seeing his fingers like touching grass and everything. It just immediately gives you that sense of what it would feel like, and like you kind of want to smell like what that spring day was like. Anyway, it's a gorgeous movie. Watch it, Nickel Boys. But
Nickel Boys,
maybe if that, because of how well that like got nominated for a bunch of Oscars, maybe that will be, somebody will be like, ooh, yeah, we can go back to doing another POV movie. I think that this is one. This is one.
I hope so. It would be really cool. All of my contracts for, all this stuff is very, they allow for a lot of like creative involvement, which is really cool. Like the book contract itself, when it comes to doing anything that's like film or whatever. So, I want to do that work. That sounds fun.
Right.
That'll be, I'm sure, a next step in your whole storytelling journey for sure. It just hasn't happened yet, but it will happen. I have full faith that that will be a part of your storytelling journey. And I can't wait to watch. I can't wait to read everything that you do and watch all of the movies that you create and all of the ways that you're going to continue storytelling, because it's just so, like, you have such a unique way that you do it, and that's so clear. And so you've like so much to give. I'm so excited. I'm so happy to have like gotten to talk to you today.
Thank you.
And I know, are you allowed to talk about Adam Mine, your next book that comes out next, I think, January?
I think
sometime
so.
2026.
Yeah, I am allowed to talk about Adam Mine. Adam Mine, first of all, I'm very excited to be working with my team at Harper again. Working with Harper has been so much fun. It is a story about Victor, very like textbook accurate Victor, not like, Frankenstein generalized pop culture mythos, like the book, like his personality is really bad. He is very annoying when he first opened it up.
He's actually the villain of Frankenstein.
Exactly. So we're retaining that. It is about Victor going to a school that is specifically for alchemy. And it is the concept of alchemy is like original like alchemical science. Biochemistry is kind of what we would talk about it now, like biochemistry or like So it's about him going to a school like that as like a younger person than all the rest of his classmates. So he's like 17 or 18, and like all the rest of his classmates who are graduating that year with him are like 25. And it's about him feeling very insecure and very like upset about being this like wonderkind and like being disrespected by all of his peers and all of his, whatever, all the stuff that he wants to do with like science and medical technology and whatever. And everybody's like, that sounds like, don't do that. That sounds bad, like a crime against humanity. And he's like, it's so important. I want to be a surgeon. I want to replace people's blood with plasma when they can't have enough blood. And they're like, gross. Oh my God. And he's like, germ theory. And they're like, that's stupid. Like he's having a horrible time. Right. And it's about him trying to like prove himself, and like his decision to do the thing with the monster and whatever is him trying to prove himself to his peers. And it starts out, and this is probably going to be in the copy, so like I'm not a huge spoiler, but it starts out with him trying to figure out how to do it. And he manages to figure out doing, I think like the manual breathing stuff. So he can like put people kind of like a little bit like in stasis, and he figures out how to do that, but he can't figure out how to like revive somebody from having died. So he decides to fake it. And he goes to a rural town near to his college and kidnaps a guy. And he specifically kidnaps a guy who is diabetic and puts him into a diabetic coma and does like a full autopsy on like cutting him, like he took him apart and put him back together. And then just like play acts that he did this to his peers to make them like him. And then like revives this guy from like a diabetic coma. And this guy is just like, oh my God, what the hell? And just all of the experience of him doing that, he like destroys the way that this guy looks, winds up, doing the classic Frankenstein thing where like he sets the house on fire and then leaves him in there. So he's like covered in burns, and he's just like, what the fuck? And it's just decides to just like chase this kid all the way around Europe to kill him. So it's like just this guy, and he's running away from this other guy who's like, I think he's only like a little bit older than him. So he's like 18 or 19, and he's being chased by this guy who's 21, who's like, I am going to kill you. And like the kind of like the twist of the story that kind of makes it a slightly different from like the original Frankenstein is that in order to kind of like do all of the stuff that they're doing, he winds up doing this kind of like this spell that binds their souls together. So like as the monster is like chasing him and trying to like do all this stuff to him and whatever, he's kind of stealing his life force. So they are able to do this interesting thing where they like kind of communicate wordlessly through time and space with each other. And it's the whole story is about Victor realizing that what he did was horrible, that it was sinful, generally speaking, but also like a crime against humanity, extraordinarily rude to do to some complete stranger, just ethically disaster, like all this stuff and whatever. He's learning, he's a child, and he's learning to become a man. Meanwhile, this guy who is like just became a man, he is just 21, he is realizing that Victor is a child, or was a child when he did it, that there are certain things that are like mistakes. His own understanding of justice in regards to what he was planning to do to Victor and what he does to Victor's family and whatever is an inappropriate punishment for the sins that were transacted upon him. And it's literally just about them learning to love each other through understanding the circumstances that led them to the destruction that originally happened between them. Yes.
Damn.
So,
Damn's right.
It's really cool. It's really sad.
Great. It's another one I can't wait for. But now I have to wait until next year for it.
Yes.
But at least we can buy the Corruption of Hollis Brown in like 2 weeks. What's your other one that you're gonna say?
I'm really excited about it. I'm nervous, but I'm also really excited. Yeah, I have another book coming out with Macmillan actually as well. It's called Ellie, and it's about shapeshifters. So
when's that one coming out?
Probably 25, 20, maybe 2027. I turned in edits for it like 2 months ago. So we're at the stage where it's like we're we're getting there. But it's about a girl who is in a really like abusive household, and she meets a shapeshifter who is kind of more like a Selkie. Like, you got like the skin, and you got, if you own it, you get to like kind of keep them or whatever. And it's about this guy who has been trapped with his skin that is being given to a variety of people, like through, I think, the past like 3,000 years, who have just held him in captivity for this whole time. And he winds up coming to the small town where the girl main character lives, because he has systemically gone back and murdered everyone who has had his skin, and he has one more person left, and he's like, hey, this one last guy has been really, really nice to me, but like, again, he had me in bondage, so I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with him. And the girl is like, wow, you killed your abusers, tell me more about that. It's like a structured kind of like interview with a vampire, where this guy's like, yeah, so I went back and did all this stuff, and she's like, tell me more. I'm taking notes. Like, I'm thinking about my stepdad. We're gonna figure this shit out for me too. Like about them, learning about that their role within the structure of their own oppression, and like, kind of like licking their wounds with each other, and like figuring out what kind of life they want to live and what they want to do with their freedom, and like all of that stuff. Very cute. Very Kayla's attempt at an issue book.
I love it.
I can't wait.
Yeah. We'll
Before we let you go, though, what are you currently reading?
What am I currently reading? I'm reading Under the Tuscan Sun.
Ooh.
Because I am thinking about trying to write an adult book.
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to feel like that, where it's like a bunch of recipes. It's about some lady who goes to Italy and finds herself, whatever. But it is about like, as she's doing that, and she's like, oh, I'm making my new house, and I'm meeting hot Italian guys, and I'm like running in the grass and whatever. She like has these recipes that she eats, but also like makes in her house. And like, as you're experiencing her life, you're also experiencing the richness of the food and the sunshine and like all this stuff. But I want to write about a contract killer who is driving from one end of America to the other, very like supernatural style. And it's about him going to these restaurants and like going to these American attractions, because I really want to write about like Americana conceptually. It's about him and the relationship that he has with his handler, and their like romance that is just over the phone. I don't know.
I love that.
Love it.
I'm doing research.
Well, I love the research for what it will eventually become, I assume, at some point.
Yeah, one day, if they let me.
Yeah, if they let you. I'm sure that they will. Well, listen, I think Alyssa and I could both talk to you all day.
Yes.
But like, I feel like we should at least save it for when Adam Mine comes out. So I think we'll end it here. But whenever Adam Mine comes out, we're gonna have you right back on, because we need to keep talking. Because we just want you to talk to us about art
all day, about everying.
But thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you,
was
Kayla.
Great to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And again, I can't wait to read everything that you write going forward. So, and I hope that everybody listening runs out and buys The Corruption of Hollis Brown.
When she asked me how far we can take it, I tell her we can take it across the entire universe. You are my universe, not just a planet.
And again, since it was a long episode, now that we're finishing up, how about let's just jump right into it. Are you reading anything new, or are you still stuck in your slump?
Okay, so I'm almost done with the book that I've been slumping with, which is good, because that took me way too long. And I just got a new book that is nonfiction. And it is I think it's called Juice. And it's the story of, it's like a whole story of the history of female ejaculation. So I'm excited to start that. But usually when I'm reading something that's like informational, I'm also reading something that's a story. So the next thing I'm going to read is going to be a romance. So I have a bunch in my room. Honestly, maybe. I can't believe how long those are. I was like, wow.
Some of them are short. You can shorten them. You can look by the short ones.
I'll have to find one that's a little shorter. But when she was talking about fanfic being like potato chips, I was like, in my head, I was like, feels like snacky feels short. And then I was like, damn, 500,000 words is crazy.
That's a whole bag of potato chips.
That's a whole bag. So anyway, so the next one I'm going to try and dive into is a romance to test your theory of when you're in a slump. Does romance pull you out? So I'll let you know how it goes. What are you reading?
I think I mentioned it the last time we recorded it. I'm not sure, but I'm reading Beyond Reach. It's by Karen Slaughter. It's a thriller.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm still reading that one. You would have thought that me being trapped in an airport for 16 hours over the weekend would have helped me finish reading the book, but I was distracted doing other things. So
yeah, and being in an airport is distracting on its own. It's stressful, and listen, and you'll have to keep us updated on how you love the book, how you like it, how you love it.
I will.
Whatever.
And listeners, tell us what you are reading. Go to YAOK podcast at Instagram, and also let us know. Tell us your favorite fan fictions.
Ooh,
that's what you can do too.
That's a fun one.
Let us know.
Thanks for listening.
We'll hear you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Campfire season's back, and that means s'mores. But when you're at home treating yourself, take them over ice with Dunkin's S'mores Cold Brew Concentrate. And suddenly you're always treating yourself. The home with Dunkin' is where you want to be. Click or tap the banner to shop now.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.